All right. It
Recording in progress.
looks like we have a quorum just barely going on. I know we're expecting a few people to be absent today, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started with the meeting script. This meeting of the Sebastopol Climate Action Committee is being conducted both live and also utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with State of California executive orders. Zoom is being used to allow remote attendance. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. We're conducting today's meeting in both an actual and a virtual setting, using Zoom as well as our physical bodies. Committee members, city council members, and staff are participating either here or from remote locations, as well as members of the public, practicing relatively appropriate social distancing in as much as that may be needed at this time or not. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom as well as attendance as noted on the city's website and on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Climate Action Committee may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item. Anyone using a little closer. I can project if I really have to. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this way to provide public comment. And in general, for anybody who may be new here, we take turns, try to raise our hand, one person talking at a time. After the discussion of any particular given agenda item, there will always be a section for public comment on each agenda item as we move along. I believe that concludes the intro. Carrie, would you be so kind as to do roll call for us, please?
Absolutely. And the good news that I have on that front is that's the very last time you need to read that, because we now are going to be including that language on the agendas. And I'm told that that will suffice. So that is appropriate notice. All right. Okay, for the roll call, Emmett Hopkins.
I'm here.
Alex Goodman. I do not see Alex. Dina Allen.
Here.
Joshua Somone. Kenna Lee. I believe we knew she was not going to be here today. Is that correct, Joshua? Okay. Debbie Burns.
Here.
Lisa Pierce.
Here.
Sunali Sikland. I do not see Sunali. Zeno Swinchik.
Here.
Ambrosia Thompson.
Present.
And we know that Vice Mayor Rich is out of town. Councilmember Maurer.
Here.
There you go. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Carrie. Just to briefly note that we have an inspirational quote on the agenda today from Angela Davis. You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world. And you have to do it all the time. So hang in there, everybody. A review of action items from previous meeting. Diana Rich was tasked with contacting the Gravenstein Apple Fair with respect to potential tabling there. That, I believe, will have to remain outstanding for today's meeting. Lisa was going to contribute to a staff report on SB 252. Sounds like that has happened. All good. Carrie was going to put the work plan on the website, which I believe happened instantly. We, in chairs, myself and Kenna in general, will be encouraging email inquiries to subscribe to city email lists via the city website to try to streamline our mailing list system. And Carrie was going to share a template for community impact assessment that was perhaps after.
I have not done that yet, but thank you for reminding me.
I'll leave that there. Let's see. And Dina and myself were going to research on a job box for the community garden and forward that along, which just happened earlier today. And I believe that concludes the agenda or the action items from last time. All right. Now we have a general open slot available for comments from the public regarding any items not on the agenda. Are there any people from the public who would care to comment? in general sense. Yes.
Just a super random question.
Mhm.
Have we done like any kind of like a net zero goal statement or any kind of like inventory of emissions or any kind of sustainability? What people commonly do to establish baselines for impact. Have we done anything like that?
And Josh, I'm going to ask you to repeat that question so that anyone who's watching the video and participating remotely can catch what that comment
Okay.
was. And in the future, just if you're making a public comment, if you can go up to the mic so that we can do the hybrid meeting, that'd be great.
Can do. Yeah, so just to clarify for anyone listening in, we have a question related to the commencement or completion of a net zero statement with respect to baseline metrics. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about? Can you, I'm not sure that I understand your request. I believe the answer is no, but to say that that's probably something that has been considered in some fashion. I'm wondering if you're referring to any specific realm of quantification with respect to city or committee, or can you elaborate on your question?
Right, and
a
I
little bit?
can note that we do have a greenhouse gas emission baselines that was done through the RCPA, so we do have that.
And in further elaboration upon that, those sort of countywide statistics that are also broken out city by city in general, are updated by RCPA every couple of years or so. And I believe we're still that
They
a little bit
just
later
finished
this
that.
summer. They're kind of like finishing compiling the
Correct.
data from
Yeah.
last year or the year before, perhaps. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
think they actually just came out with it. I can check
Okay.
if I get a chance during this meeting and update.
Sounds good. Any other public comments or questions at this time? Okay. All right. And finally, next up, any statements of conflict of interest from members of the committee with respect to any of today's business? Hardly ever comes up because, none of us are getting paid or material involved or making any actual decisions or policies. So there we go. All right. Next item would be the planning department report. Carrie, if you please.
Thank you. I've got a couple of items, as does John. Just in general, the budget committee has done a pretty intensive month of meetings in May, and they have now released the draft budget that will start at city council hearings on June 20th. And that the preliminary budget, I believe, which includes the capital improvement plan, is on the city council meeting date for June 20th. So that information is available. We're anticipating it'll be more than one meeting, but the discussion starts on June 20th, which is next Tuesday night at the 6 p.m. city council meeting start time. A couple other items that I know will be on that agenda, or that actually were on the last agenda, was the regional transportation, recreational trails grant, that the city is applying for Ives Park for the remaining section of the trail that goes through there, and hopefully eventually connects to the Joe Rodetta Trail through downtown, but the section that is from the pool to High Street. So we are applying for a grant through the grant writer. If you've been past the art sculpture garden and towards the ball fields on that side, you know that it's a very badly degraded trail. So this would replace that section. So that is, I know that's what I've been busy working on the last few days. That's due this week, and hopefully we'll hear about that. We did get bids back, and council approved the segment one, that first segment of the trail. That's being paid for with park funds, city park funds, as well as Proposition 68 State Parks Grant. And so that's going to be happening this summer, as is the AmeriCorps Trail construction. That was also approved by council. Now that the bids are in, and that will be definitely being done this summer, starting in July. So those are a couple of big projects happening. And then if you've been on Bodega, you can see they're also doing work on Bodega Avenue right now I think I've reported on that previously, but the work is actually starting there. So that's good to see. And then John had a couple items on transportation.
Yes. So last week I sat on the Sonoma County Transit Authority, SCTA, for their countywide active transportation plan. So we had their kickoff meeting last week. So if there are any questions from this group regarding that plan moving forward, I do have some of the timelines and breakdowns as far as when they're going to be reaching out for public comment, and then when documents are going to be released and things like that. So that's all I have for this group. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else from planning? All set. Great. Certainly.
So the website is still not updated, and I wonder when that is expected. There are there's like Phil joined the transportation group. We had some reshuffling. I think I joined the funding group, and it's already like mid of the year now. So I wonder what's holding us back.
Yes, there ended up being a lot more work that staff had to do to fill in all of because it's a pretty major change. It's not just a refresh, it's a complete restructuring of how everything is linked. But I know I answered 2 or 3 final questions today. And I'm just looking for the ETA on that. And I'm not finding it here, but I think it is within the next couple of weeks. The website, yeah, team. Thursday. This Thursday. There you go. This Thursday. Even better.
And then the other question I had, so the transportation working group suggested that we find a citizen representative on the Sonoma County-wide transportation advisory group that advises the update of the pedestrian master plan, bicycle master plan update. So I'm wondering where that is.
So I have let the city clerk know that this group is interested in that. And I did hear, Zena, I know I'd coordinated with you, and there is at least one person who would be applying for it. So I believe, city council actually, Steve, were you the last? Okay, it was a different Stephen. We did have a citizen rep to that group in the past, and I think a couple of years ago it was, they resigned and they said, well, it's really more of a staff committee. So council at that point did not appoint another citizen to it, and there was no one who had interest in it. Now, obviously, we have someone who's interested in being a citizen rep to that. That needs to be approved by council, go out through the committee, application process, an open application process for appointments. I will check in with the city clerk on when that can get scheduled. I do know that we have at least one other vacancy that we need to be advertising with, and so that certainly could be grouped with that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anything else on the planning front? Anyone? All right. Next item is city council report. Anything to add on that front?
I wanted to reiterate about the budget. Sebastopol's budget is going to be on the agenda for June 20th, and also likely to be on June 27th, because depending on how long it takes, we've scheduled a second meeting just in case we need that, because it needs to be finalized. So there are a couple of things I wanted to note. That one is that the STEP newsletter that's been in both online and print, the ad hoc committee has pulled the print version and just left it online. That's one possible change. I mean, the full council needs to go through that and vote on it, but I know that that's a concern for some people. And then the other thing is the community grants have been completely slashed. The budget was a little over 100,000 for community grants, and it's down to 3,000. So these are things you can find this budget online. And anyway, the more eyes on the budget, the better. So there's a transmittal letter in the beginning that explains some of the changes in the budget, and then the whole budget is all there. So it's quite a huge document and a lot of information about the city. not only the budget, but the plans the city has for the future, for future plans and projects in the city. I found it quite helpful to read that. The second thing is that I am on the ad hoc committee for the Recology contract. And Sebastopol has had a really long-term contract with Recology. And the contract they had kept our rates really low. And to the extent that Recology was losing money on Sebastopol. So in one of the council meetings previously, we voted, it was actually a 3-2 vote to continue to work with Recology. 2 of the other council members wanted to put out the contract for bid, and we chose to extend the contract with Recology and continue to work with them. So myself and Joe McLewis will be on that ad hoc committee to negotiate a contract with Recology. And so if you have ideas about what you'd like to see on that contract, please do let me know. I did receive a couple requests about, like, some people, only because they practice zero waste, they don't generate a lot of trash. So they wanted to know, do I have to have a trash account? Well, I think you do, but maybe there's some creative things we could try to achieve in terms of negotiating with Recology. So, and let's see, 2 other things actually. I met with North Bay Organizing Project. I don't know if you're familiar with that group. They are strong on tenants' rights, so that was a big part of our discussion, was the issue of tenants' rights. They also have a climate justice group, and they have a transportation group too. And lastly, as my husband helped me get my bike tuned up, and I have been riding my bike, so I wanted to say thank you to the bike community, to Bike Month, and to the Sebastopol Bike Group for the inspiration to start riding again. It's been a long time, and I'm really happy about it. So, in fact, I rode down here today from my house all the way down here to see how long it would take me. It took me 20 minutes, and I live over near Regal on Frankel Lane, so it was a quick ride, but I didn't want to do it twice. Going back took longer. Anyway, thank you. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Any other questions or comments on these subjects related to city planning and agendas? All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay, moving on to our regular agenda. The first proposed agenda item was going to be welcoming our new youth member. I have unfortunate news that our new youth member has already resigned. Alas, we had hopes there. And just general commentary on this subject, we've been without one for a while. There has been outreach to the high school sort of in an ongoing fashion. And, you know, in principle, it would be a great thing to have more representation from our youth here. In practice, it seems that the level of, you know, time and attention commitment, and particularly the duration, is difficult for teenagers to manage. It was easier during the pandemic when we were meeting on Zoom and school was a little bit less of a social scene than it is now in normal life. So just recognizing the challenges there. That said, we have established good contact with the student leader of the climate club at the high school. And she and I have already been in conversation about when they get back together in the fall, trying to plug them in with a couple of projects. I expect to be going there again, talking to them again, encouraging folks to perhaps apply in pairs to come and participate in the Climate Action Committee. The other flip side of it is that if we do get engaged students, they're often seniors and then leave after a year, which we've also seen happen a couple of times here. So just to say that has been an ongoing challenge. We're still working on it. We do have hopes for next year, but as of now, our youth seat is likely to remain unfilled for the next season or so. Any questions on that subject, please? You might have to punch the button.
The challenges that you shared with the youth, was that direct feedback from Ruby, or did we get direct feedback as to?
The direct feedback was that she had a lot going on and was stressed about it and whatnot. And so, she had gone through the application process, which itself took a while, and had met with Kenna and that sort of thing, and then hadn't made the last meeting when it got rescheduled. And so the specifics were not shared broadly. It was just a general overload level. So that's what we got in this kind. Yes, Lisa.
Does anyone know if the youth people also have to go through that kind of lengthy? Yes, they do.
But there's actually a special youth application that is shorter than what
Well,
we
I'm
did, but
talking
there is
about
still
that,
the
the thing that we had to do to, not the application, but
Ethics.
what's it called? The ethics,
Oh,
the
okay,
long,
training. Good
the long
question.
ethics training. So I would think that could be a major turnoff for the youth. And I'm just wondering, is there any way we could skip that for the teenagers or?
That would be a council decision, so I'm going to look to Councilmember Maurer in terms of whether that's, I mean, if that's something you think council would be open. I mean, I don't know if maybe you and Vice Mayor Rich could speak about that and provide some direction.
All right. Yes, Ambersha.
I've worked with the CAC group at the high school for quite a while now, and I would just love to suggest with the youth participants to try and get a freshman, an incoming freshman, and maybe a junior and a senior, and kind of do a buddy system.
Mm-hmm.
That way, the older student can, side by side train with the younger student and kind of do it that way. That's how I do my when I do my trainings at school through ecology. I'll train them, but also making sure to focus on the younger ones too, so that it will move through to the senior year.
Great. Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm just wondering if it's difficult to retain youth members. Is there an advisory group, for example, like does Annalee have a climate group, and could we have them come and advise, or we could go to them find out what they're doing, what are they thinking, like sort of like a youth council?
There is a climate group at Annalee. I have met with them. Student leadership tends to be somewhat changeable. What with in general, whoever is sort of leading a group ends up leaving, and then there's a bit of reshuffling to reformat that. So we've had a hard time with continuity. That said, we do have this contact who is returning next year in the leading, and I also have contact with the faculty mentor for that group. So yeah, we're hoping to get something like that. I think there's confusion on the youth part about the amount of effort that is required to sit on this committee, and that I think is one of the ongoing fears. And since we're meeting less here but meeting more in working groups, there's also ambiguity in that place. So in general, I would say that it requires that youth membership requires someone who is sort of exceptionally together. And good at their kind of time management, and that the schedule of civic work as we experience it is a hard thing to align with the school year schedule. So I think there's some fundamental conflicts there. I was suggesting to them previously that they sort of apply in pairs and have some kind of tag team continuity, and we'll definitely bring that up again. I hope that it goes forward. So, all right, Zeno, yes.
Yeah, if I was in high school, I would think, how do I fit in here? Right? I mean, these are a bunch of people that have been active in town. What can I contribute? And that may be not clear. And so one way to try to approach that is to get people through the working group. So you have already some projects that people can warm up to, rather than saying, do you want to sit on this board that meets once a month to represent youth or so? That's a challenge. So I would think that we could change the approach a little bit and trying to see whether the working groups can do outreach around transportation or energy or other things that working groups like the compost project.
I confess that I'm ahead of you there, and I've lined up the climate club for two projects on the sequestration front.
No, yeah.
And if,
I mean,
if you
I-
all want to make plugs for things that could be done in your working groups and what you would be interested in particular, we've been trying to get youth input to get a better understanding of youth concerns, because we're obviously coming from a very different place, and our priorities may not be the same as theirs. There's also the chance to go to the school and speak to those groups and kind of try to plug in with their outreach. So yeah, there's different ways to do it. If y'all are willing, I'd kind of like to move on from this subject, but suggest that people feel free to correspond with me. And by the time school starts again in the fall, I'm going to try to have a little bit of a strategy for how to engage with the high school from the outset, now that they have a little more continuity in the club. And I would take your point, Zeno, and say that if you all have working group projects in which you might like some student involvement, start thinking about that and about how we might frame it for them. As an example of something that happened for us, we had the street tree, kind of the city forest inventory project, was kind of a back burner one for me and Dina, because the two of us, having started it, didn't feel like we were in a place to count all the trees in town and that sort of thing. That shifted in talking to the student rep, because sort of crowdsourcing that data, if we can create some kind of database platform for entering that data, becomes something a little more easy to spread to youth members. And so there was indication that the Climate Club would, for instance, be interested in helping to assess the city street tree network on an incremental basis. And so just re-envisioning that sense of labor and of input to that kind of shifted our project list priority for over the next couple of seasons related to that. So again, supporting your point and saying, by all means, folks, let's keep talking about this. There are challenges, but it's worth continuing to recruit youth in that way. So, okay. Are we good on this subject matter for now? Any comments or questions from public? Okay, thanks very much for that, everyone. Lisa mentioned something which I believe we should get back to, even if briefly, which was the point of the ethics training. That was a bit of an action item carryover from the previous one, and that some of us, myself
Yes, I
included,
have.
in transparency, had not completed that. And it was also something that Carrie was going to
I can
mention.
call out people right here. We have 3 folks who have not completed it. Josh, you just admitted to being one of them. One of the other members is in this room, and the other is not in attendance at this meeting. So I will follow up with them, but I know, this is starting to take a long time for these to get done. So if you could please just try to find time to do this. Carrie Vasquez at the city, if you have any issues, she's the one who's been sending out email reminders to folks. If you do have issues logging on, she's also the person who can help you log on. So thank you.
Great. All right. Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bear.
Was a bit of
I kind of wanted to get it over with right away, but there's one question for those of you who haven't done it yet where it's a problem. So, I had to go to the company and all this stuff so just be prepared for something like.
Give us the answer.
No,
We haven't done the training.
you know what it is? It's like there's all these things that have to line up. You have to pick, A goes to C, B goes to all these things have to kind of go like this. And my computer, which should have been just fine with everything, it wasn't cooperative. So it's like, and they said, yeah, we are having a lot of problems with that question. So anyway, just a heads up, it might happen to you too.
All right, moving on. Our next agenda item is with respect to the library art project, which, as I believe, is coming up later on this month, the 24th, I believe. And so today we are looking for art approval. Sonali, are we ready to get to that point?
The art was submitted, so it's just a matter of getting the okay. The library is, with all the things that have been going on, if anybody's been following that, they've postponed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's
And they
the-
don't have a date set yet. They're coordinating it with the city. But do we have consensus to approve the art?
Do you
Here?
mean, do we have a quorum?
Yeah.
We have enough people here to.
Okay.
approve
I mean,
right
we
now.
could just, I don't know. I already shared what the art was. I think it was on a Zoom. Okay. I don't know if we want to pull it up and see.
Do you, if it's, where is it?
In an email?
I do
Yeah,
have my
no,
email
okay.
here, so.
I can re-email it, or I can try to find it
Well,
and email it to us now, so we could just like.
so is
get
it
it
just
done
that
with?
we have to approve it? Does anybody else in the city have to approve it?
So it will
Where's-
also be going to the Public Art Committee, and Sunali has been coordinating with them as well, so.
Okay. Okay. 'Cause,
I didn't know it was going to the Public Art Committee. No, because the library is the one who took all the submissions, and it's only a matter of whether.
Is this the sidewalk?
art?
This is
yeah.
the sidewalk. The sidewalk art is going back to the Public Art Committee, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
they've taken all the submissions to the Public Art Committee.
So Matthew,
Yeah.
the branch manager, did come and talk with the Public Art Committee a couple months ago and gave an update on it, the process and whatnot. And I believe there was at least one member of the Public Art Committee that was going to help be a liaison with him.
Okay.
And yes, the actual art submissions are going back to the Public Art Committee. I did speak with Matthew Rose recently, and they are delaying that, or actually, it wasn't Matthew, but it was someone else from the library. And that project is being passed from Matthew to someone else who has more time for it. And I'm supposed to be setting up a meeting with her, but they are delaying the implementation of that.
Okay.
But I do think we'll be trying to get it on probably the next Public Art Committee agenda to at least review the submissions, and then those are ready to go.
Okay, so the part here is whether we put our name on this particular piece. The library has already taken the submission and accepted it, and I think they will deal with the process of sending it to the Public Arts Committee. But it's whether or not we approve it to have our name on it.
Meaning just Climate Action Committee?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Has this committee ever seen the
Uh-huh.
art? Okay. Like last time.
Okay. I can pull it up and we
Tunali, if
can
you
go
can
move
email
on.
it to me, I can put it up on
Okay,
the
great.
screen. The one I
Sounds
do
good.
have is the Wings of Awareness, but that's different, right?
Oh
The-
yeah, that's.
yeah.
Oh no, that's.
That's the recycle
Yeah.
or upcycle.
So if in the essence of time, if we want to move on to something, and I'll email it and we can come back.
That sounds reasonable. Thank you, Sonali. Any other questions or details on the subject of the library sidewalk painting at this time? Okay, thank you. Our item C is Gravenstein Apple Fair planning. My understanding is that this was sort of in Diana's court and she is absent today. Is there anyone else who has information or perspective on that they wish to share at this time, or shall we table it to the next meeting? Ambrosia, please.
I believe we should probably table it for the next meeting. We discussed it, but we didn't have Alan and Shelley present. So I think we'll have to wait till our next meeting to kind of pull that together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yes, Lisa.
So last year, we were kind of hidden. We were in a nice cool spot in the shade, but unfortunately, not very many people knew we were there, including people who were trying to find us, who really just couldn't even find us. So I'm wondering if there's any way we could lobby for a little bit more visibility this time and where we are.
So you're saying the location of your waste station?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We had a
your
table.
booth. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I don't know if what Diana's talking about, if we're going to be having our own booth again, or maybe having the booth right next to a recycling station. I think that was the perfect solution. Yeah.
I
Great.
can look into that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Do we know if the city is already planning a table?
We don't normally. I know
Okay.
last year we had like the housing element folks because that was an active. We were trying to get participation on that, but I don't think the city in general has a booth
Okay.
at that.
Okay.
I mean, I know none of the other groups at the planning department controls would have a booth there.
Okay.
But yes, Lisa, you're correct. We did, at the last meeting, we did talk about how lovely it would be to have the booth right next to the waste station sorting, because then it could help you guys with volunteers as well as education and all that other stuff.
Okay, and then one more logistical question. Does anyone on the organizing and coordinating end of things know if we push this business off to our next July meeting? Are we likely to miss any deadlines? Are there any arrangements with the organizers of the event that should be made prior to our next committee meeting?
I can be the point person on that.
Okay,
I can talk to Pam Davis.
that would be great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Just, yeah, and that sort of thing can probably be handled in a working group in between now and then. I just didn't want us to miss the ball if we put everything off for a month.
Absolutely.
Great, thank
I'll
you.
make sure we get a good spot.
All right, any questions, comments on the subject of the Apple Fair at this time? Okay, thank you. Our next item is the EV proposal. I believe, let's see, Steve, Lisa, are we positioned?
I'm not really sure what that is about, to tell you
Okay.
the truth. Does
Frank.
anyone know what that is?
I think Alex.
Oh, Alex. Oh, right. Yes, on the street charging. Was that it? Maybe?
I think one person was for the street charging, light bus charging,
Yes.
and then another one was just trying to get more people using EVs. I'm not part of the transportation, so, okay. Anyway.
Frankly, this is an agenda item I inherited from Kenna, who's not here today, so just trying to carry it through and connect the dots. But if we have no one here to shop that proposal,
Well,
that's
I can
fine.
just
It can sit in
say
the
that
works.
one thing about that, and that the last Wednesday night, there was a climate conversation at the Grange on EVs, and that was a really big success. There was all kinds of people who brought in their EVs and people looking at them and talking about them. And then we had some really good presentations. So that was a good event for our city.
Yeah, the transportation group hasn't met for a little while. I was in Vietnam, and I think we should bring this back, and Alex and the other people of our group should have a document, something in writing, because this is complicated, right? So let's work on that for next time.
Great. All right, thanks everyone. Moving on, we may actually get to end early today, the way things are going, which would be the first time ever. So just get ready for making history if it comes to that point. The next item on the stated agenda is the electrification survey review, but I had a note that I missed saying that we may not be ready for quite a full review on that, aside from the initial review that we did receive last time, which was great. So I believe, unless there is any discussion.
Do you want to say
on that
anything
front?
about that? What?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, the work has been going on, and it's getting pretty close, don't you think, to being ready to?
Hard to tell.
Okay.
A lot of, drafting and documents.
Yeah, we got a lot of results and organizing it all and drawing conclusions. So it's coming.
Great. Looking forward to that. Yeah, thanks everyone for your work on the side. I know that's a lot of things are going on in the wings, and these meetings are becoming a little more like summary than business in some ways. All right, moving on. Our next stated agenda item is working group reports. This is an open slot for any additional working groups news that is not related to agenda items. On that front, I have something from the sequestration front, our working group, which is that we have scheduled our next two compost events. They will be the second Saturday in September and the second Saturday in November. or I'm sorry, October. Our usual 9 to 12 right behind this building time slot. The deliveries have been confirmed. We will also be looking to tag team those events with volunteer input at the community garden, which of course is kind of just right through the block that way, which this previous time we had people drop off extra bags of compost at the garden site, and then some people working on the garden site to incorporate that. So we're kind of trying to marry those two efforts in the general outreach and stirring up interest aspect of it. We don't expect to be doing much on those things in the next month and a half or so, but mid-August we will be stirring that up again. So presumably at the August meeting, we might have some news for y'all. We're not really worried about the outreach on that anymore. There's substantial momentum on the compost giveaways. We tend to get rid of 70 some yards of it within the first 3 hours, and then the next 10 yards go away in the next day or two. And so far so good. We're getting a lot of repeat customers, and yeah, it's pretty well loved by the local community. And that's it for sequestration at this time. Any other groups care to talk about things that might be developing in the wings?
I do have the art piece up as well now.
Oh, okay.
From
Great.
Sonali.
Let's come back to it. Oh, okay.
So Sonali, if you want to talk about it, I've got it up on the screen for everybody now.
Okay. I feel like it's self-explanatory. Basically, just to remind everybody, it's the library is doing, equity inclusion, and they felt that climate was, a part of that. And so every submission gets one sidewalk piece. And Rye and the students from Summerfield have offered to come and do the painting. So now I had to email them and let them know that it was extended, but it just going back to the youth and, getting them involved. Obviously, we didn't give them the option of what to paint, which would have been even nicer, but
Have
please.
they seen this design?
I believe, it's been so many months, but I believe that I did send it to Rye. I will email it to him again.
I think it's great.
And the whole thing was, just to get our name out there, awareness as much as possible.
Were you said there was a question as to whether the Climate Action Committee of Sebastopol goes on there? Is that a question or?
Well, we wouldn't be asking this committee if it didn't have that name on it. Because anybody can submit it. They took submissions from everybody in town.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why we're bringing it to the committee is to ask for approval.
Okay. Yes.
I think it's a beautiful, beautiful design. I just have one question about the spacing in between the large words around the circle. Like planet and one, like there's no space between those words, whereas one and home, there's a lot of space. Home and one and people, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I didn't know if that was
it might have been in the Canva when it translated. It's digital. So yes, it's a good point. When we draw it, it will be more evenly spaced.
Yeah. Okay. It's lovely.
Yeah, it
Really,
was
really
Kenna's
nice.
idea to do the wording.
I like the wording. I like the picture. It's really, really nice. I like the flowers in the hands.
Great. And you
Wonderful.
can't tell in this, but the idea is that is our apple.
Oh, yeah.
Our Sebastopol
Oh,
Climate
yeah.
Committee apple
that's
is the
nice.
world.
Yeah. That's great.
And Joshua, I don't know if you see, but Debbie Burns has her hand up as well.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah, Debbie, please go ahead.
Actually, now that I'm thinking of this comment, maybe it's not so. I was just thinking that to me, my eye, like in design, it's trying to find a lot of different things. There's a lot going on. And so, now that you say the apple, I'm like, oh my gosh, and the apple is there too. I'm wondering if maybe the blue on the wording is picking up from the blue in the earth, and maybe instead of adding a new color white, if you could pick up another color from that's in, like maybe the green or the yellow or something like that. My tendency would be to like give the eye less to try to master in design. Just thought it's beautiful and I love it. I always love it's gorgeous. That would just be my only comment.
Good suggestion. Thank you, Debbie. I'll pass that on. And also the peace sign would mimic the outline of the apple. I also couldn't do that on Canva.
Sorry,
ahead.
Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I like Debbie's idea. And also, one other suggestion I would have would be to have the home at the top and the planet and the people are both balanced with the same number of letters. And if they could be shifted so that they're both symmetrically on the bottom, you know what I'm saying? And the home at the top, then you'd get really a nice, very balanced composition. I think.
Absolutely. I think, did the second one have that better? I sent both. Yes, love that.
Sunali, just on the logistical front, is there a plan for how this design gets translated to the sidewalk? Anything resembling a stencil or layout or whatever? Because my first take is painting all of that on a sidewalk with volunteers is kind of daunting in its precision. Maybe these people are skilled and will just jump on it. I'm just wondering a little bit about how that graphic gets laid
The
out.
thought was that we could do a projection, from a computer onto the sidewalk, and also hand drawing it, stenciling it out and then painting it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as the folks involved have confidence or a method.
Yes.
Great, just checking. But, did you?
You can always go and spray paint out Sebastopol Climate Action Committee later.
Oh,
Graffiti it.
So a
All right,
question about
here's
the
the
background.
second. Sorry, here's the second one.
Oh yeah, that one's more balanced.
So a question about
If the home's
background.
on the top.
I like that.
The question about the background, is that the sidewalk gray or is that meant to be painted gray with this design on the top?
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because
What were you thinking?
I was thinking on the other design, maybe it wouldn't work so well with this one. The other design, I like the flowers on that one. But if it had like a color on the background, like a light green, maybe not for this design because you've got the earth with the land there. It's very green, but a light green behind it. Yeah. I like the wording on this one better.
It's balanced. Yeah.
Except for in between planet and one again. Yeah, but overall, I really like your design. Thank you.
Yeah. And this one, you can see the apple.
So circling back around to that earlier point, am I understanding correctly, Sunali, that there's still this question of whether the climate committee goes on there and you're looking for our opinion on that?
We
Is that-
haven't approved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Would, having had our discussion so far, is anyone motivated to propose a motion on that subject?
I move that.
I second.
Well, I should probably say it officially, right? I move that we vote on whether or not to approve the sidewalk art project for the library.
And it would just be to approve.
Oh, to
No,
approve.
yeah.
Oopsie. To approve. And then
I'll second.
Great. Thank you. All right.
And
Any
we do-
further questions or discussion on this? We ready for a vote? All right. All those in favor of taking the art as is, please raise your
So-
hand.
Joshua, the change with the hybrid
Oh.
meeting is I do have to do a roll call,
Oh.
which is fine, but I can
Okay.
do that. Ambrosia Thompson,
Yes.
Emmett Hopkins,
Yes.
Lisa Pierce,
yes.
Joshua Somane,
Yes, please.
Dina Allen,
Yes.
Sandy Maurer,
Yes.
Zeno Simquid,
Yes.
Sonali Sikan,
I
and Debbie Burns.
I had to unmute. Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Unanimous. Huzzah. Thank you, Sonali,
Thank
for your
you.
legwork
Thanks
on
for
that
all the
front.
input.
All right. Any other working group items, things folks have been up to, things that may be upcoming, anything on the Realm for Virtue agendas? Yes,
Yeah, so the transportation group is working on a number of things, just to list them to show that they're still kicking. We're trying to get the city interested in embracing the Vision Zero proposal of the county-wide committee and engage more with the Vision Zero community. We think that's important if we want to make biking more accessible in the town. I don't know whether you want to add anything to this, because you work on that in particular.
To the Division Zero in
Yeah.
particular, or no, not yet. We're in process of talking with Carrie about.
Yeah, and I can actually update. Thank you, Emma, to get that email from you. I did have a chance to talk with Chris Barney at SCTA about it, and it does feel like, so it's not going to trigger anything that the city wouldn't be able to do, which was kind of my concern, is to make sure there wasn't some commitment that that we needed to know about before doing that. So I do think it is something that we could move forward with, recommending to council. So I would suggest if there is if they have a template resolution, that we can work together to get that on the next CAC agenda. And then this group would then be recommending the city council approve that, and then it would go on to city council.
Yeah, and then after we have the electrification survey reviewed, our group is also looking into a mobility survey on the same line as the electrification survey. So that's another thing we're working on. Then the EV charging for low-income people, the light pole charging is another thing that we're trying to push forward. I myself work closely with Sebastopol, a citizen group that wants to have input in the update of the master plan. So I hope at some point that Sebastopol can present some things here in this group.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else on ad hoc miscellaneous working group reports off the cuff? All right. So far, so good. Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Just one question. I think we kind of we had a guest who brought up a question, and we went through it pretty quick, and I'm just wondering if we have a few extra minutes. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the topic, or of getting sort of baseline energy and goals, or is there anything else you wanted to share?
At the moment, we just leave.
Okay, thank you.
But I did see the GHG report.
Well, we should be able to say more about this, because originally the city council adopted a vision or a target of zero emissions. So that's the reason this group exists. But then getting a full climate action plan together was daunting and was costly. And so we decided not to do that, but have a list of goals or projects that would help reach that goal. And we now have a metric group that develops metrics for where the city is in terms of targets. And maybe in a month or two, we can report back on what our thinking is right now.
Yeah, and the members of that working group are actually listed as well as the lead on the city's website. So that's the person, the email there. Actually, I can probably just see who that is.
All right. Any other questions or comments, including from public or members on any subjects covered so far? Okay, so far so good. Thank you. We are now in the place of input from members related to upcoming agenda items, and that connects to action items. I've noted a few things here that may well come up at the next meeting. Kind of just want to cross-check that back with you all. It looks like there's potential for the electrification survey report next time. Do we think that's feasible? Maybe. Okay.
We'll let you know.
Okay. Potentially next time or potentially August, it sounds like. Okay. I don't think we're in any crunch on that. How about the Vision Zero subject? It sounds like you all have been moving that along. Do you expect that to be in a place for, some document for the committee next time?
Yeah, I think maybe it could be a place to get feedback from the committee.
That would be great. And then yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear the subject that you were talking about.
Right now, we're in the place of developing items for the agenda.
Oh,
for the
I
next
understand that,
meeting.
but you said something to,
The Vision,
is
the
it
Vision
Emmett?
Zero
Vision
proposal.
Zero. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Those of us who have not done the ethics training definitely need to get that finished. And then the Gravenstein Apple Fair, I expect to be coming up at the next time. Rachel, I believe that's sort of in your court. If you could touch base with Diana, it sounded like she was fielding some of that as well. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I can ask a question about the ethics training. I think I did it. But how do I find out?
You did. You did. I have a list of the folks who still need to complete it. You are not on that list, so you're good.
Right, but
120.
I get a certificate.
It is automatically recorded in the system that the city uses for tracking
And I
that.
put it on LinkedIn and
Maybe Sonali, who's the artist in the room, can make everybody
There
certificates.
is a certificate. I printed my certificate out.
I got nothing.
So if you
Nothing.
log back in, you should be able to access the courses that you've
I
taken.
was
So it should
ready
be there.
to say goodbye. I was like,
All right. So, my question back to you all is anything I missed? And we have a month till the next meeting. The agenda will be finalized about 3 weeks from tomorrow. So there is time, but just at this time, does anybody else anticipate something coming up for the next meeting? Okay, sounds like not. All right, one last chance for general questions and comments and anything anybody may have. Yes, please, Emmett.
I just can't let the meeting end without, I really enjoyed the collective design process, and I was sitting here thinking, I thought I was on the Climate Action Committee, not the Design Review Board.
Well, maybe I'll take this opportunity. I want to have this discussion about discussions in the next meeting with more people, but I just want to dribble this into your seed beds that Kenna and I have talked about this, and we both have interest in having more discussion in this group, like not just formal committee. So I know you're looking at me like you normally look at me. but it just planting that for a future discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
To speak just briefly to that, today is somewhat of an anomaly where we have all this extra time. Sometimes the agenda is packed, but that is shifting. And frankly, we're still finding the balance with what is this monthly in-person meeting? How is that different from the twice monthly Zoom things? And it's sort of figuring that out. And so there has been this sense that this is about recap and moving forward business that people are working on in the side groups. And yet I would agree that it is probably substantially easier to discuss things when we're all actually in a room together than when we're 15 faces on Zoom, where it's quite difficult to have discussions. So
Mhm.
certainly, depending on the business that's on the docket, the idea of bringing subjects with a little bit more of an open conversation, I think, is well suggested.
Great. And also, we can't have discussions, beyond a certain number of people
Quite so.
outside of this. So having everybody together to ideate and like imagine and dream would
Sure.
be amazing. Yeah.
That said, just a little reminder, folks, that it's easiest when we have an agenda item if there is an attachment the week beforehand so that everybody can understand the point and the parameters. It makes things move a lot more swiftly in here if we don't have to introduce and describe the subject, if people have that with their agenda so that we can get right into it. So, Zeno, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wonder whether we can have speakers, like people from outside the group that present on an issue related to our work relevant to the city. I know that the Petaluma committee has those speakers, and I think it always enriches the meeting itself. So this is maybe something we can discuss next time as an agenda item.
We have
Whether-
certainly done
Whether
that
this is
before.
an idea that we want to pursue.
Yeah, we have certainly done that before. We generally request that people keep it to sort of 10 to 15 minutes of presentation tops with a little Q&A, something like that. So it's difficult to give up major chunks of the time. Again, now that we're going to 2 hours, there may be a little more wiggle room on that, depending on the other business.
Well, let's discuss it.
Lisa.
Yeah, I think having discussions it's a little bit tough with this format, the speakers and we're paying for staff time, and it feels, I'd love to have more discussions, but maybe we could do it in a different way somehow, like other kind of get-togethers. I don't know if it's possible, but it's I think this is a kind of not the ideal time to have discussions, perhaps. I don't know.
And we are free to discuss things that do not constitute committee business at our leisure. But
Correct.
again, the rule is that anything related to committee business, not more than 6 of us in a clump in between meetings, because then that would break public disclosure.
Right, but anything that's just educational, that certainly is not an issue, that would be a quorum kind of, or a Brown Act kind of issue. And I would say, like, discussing how to recruit youth members, I don't think that would be a Brown Act issue. You're brainstorming ideas, it's going to come, it's not something that needs to come to a committee. Hey, Josh is going to go outreach to the high school or whatever. That's just a thing. So I don't, I know that was a certain discussion topic today. So if they're coordinating with you, I don't think that's something you need to worry about.
And similarly, Sunali, something like brainstorming or creative development, that's sort of preparatory to the possibility of something that may become business. There's also some leeway for that sort of thing, as I understand it. So. All right. Well, unless anyone has anything else. Oh, yeah, Tina.
But this is the meeting that we already set time to give our time to. So to have some other time to discuss, like we discuss in our working group, but we're not gonna be with all of you any other time than this meeting.
Yeah.
Even with these awkward things that keep me shut up a lot.
I don't like
All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time and attention and all your work on the sides. We are historically completing early, so enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And we will. Oh yeah. So, all right. Thanks everyone. Good day.
Recording
Bye,
stopped.
everyone.
The recording has stopped.
Bye, Debbie. See you in a couple hours.